My goal is to get you to think differently about leadership development in less than 6 minutes. There are two unfortunate realities when it comes to leadership. First, leaders are not as effective as we need them to be. For example, 60% of employees state that their direct leader damages their self-esteem. Second, leadership development is broken. 75% of organizations rate their leadership development programs as being not very effective. Why is this? What are we missing, and what can we do to elevate the state of leadership? I want to answer these questions, and I think you'll find the answers rather profound. To jump into this, let me introduce you to Jay. Jay's the CEO of an organization of 1,000 employees. Now, Jay is a very well-intended leader. He wants to have a positive impact on his organization, and he wants to make sure his organization successfully navigates into the future. But Jay has a terrible knack for micromanaging his executive team. He's already lost several key members of the executive team, and all others are thinking about leaving. I was brought in to help Jay improve as a leader. Now, the typical approach to helping leaders like Jay improve and to stop micromanaging is to send them to a workshop, maybe a workshop on how to delegate more effectively. This is a form of development that's called horizontal development. Horizontal development assumes that if Jay is micromanaging, it's because he lacks certain knowledge and skills, and that if we can only give him those knowledge and skills, he'll become a more effective and empowering leader. Essentially, this approach suggests that if Jay is an iPad, all he's missing is the Delegating Effectively app. But I want to take you through my first coaching call with Jay, and I want you to consider if Jay's micromanagement stems from a lack of knowledge and skills or from something deeper. To begin this coaching call, I asked him, "Why do you tend to micromanage?" His response was, "I don't know, it's just my natural reaction." As we dug into this, what we discovered is that when the organization encounters problems, even little problems, Jay gets really anxious. And that's when he's prone to step in and micromanage. Later in the call, I asked him, "Why did you start your business?" His response was, "To prove others wrong." Finally, as we got towards the end of the conversation, he was great. He was willing to be vulnerable, and he said something I've now heard multiple executives state. He said, "I try not to let anyone know this, but deep down, I'm a very insecure person." Does this sound like Jay has a knowledge or skills issue that horizontal development can effectively address? No. What is going on here is that Jay has some insecurities about his self-worth that is probably connected back to some form of past trauma. And this insecurity is driving him to want to prove others wrong because that helps him to feel like he's of value and worth. And so when problems occur in his organization, to him it's a signal that he won't prove others wrong and therefore won't be of value and worth. So he steps in to micromanage because it helps him to feel better and more secure. And he has a hard time seeing the negative impact that has on those around him. To go back to the iPad analogy, Jay doesn't have an app problem, he has an operating systems problem. And if we want to help Jay develop and operate as a more effective leader, we've got to use a form of development that is different than what is typical. It's a form of development that's called vertical development. Vertical development is a form of leadership development that is all about upgrading leaders' internal operating systems. It carries 3 assumptions. First, it assumes that if leaders aren't operating effectively, it's because they have fears and insecurities that are causing them to self-protect. And this has negative ramifications for those they lead. Second, it assumes that these fears and insecurities are rooted in past trauma. And third, it assumes that if we want to help leaders develop, we've got to help them heal from their past trauma and overcome their fears and insecurities. When we understand what vertical development is and these 3 assumptions, it helps us get a clearer sense of the current state of leadership. Leaders are not as effective as we need them to be because they commonly hold fears and insecurities that, if left unaddressed, cause them to self-protect. Leadership development is not as effective as we need it to be because we primarily focus on horizontal development, which doesn't address the root of most leadership issues. And if we want to elevate the state of leadership, what we've got to focus on is vertical development and helping leaders heal from their past trauma. As we do so, we help them to overcome their fears so they operate from a place of security as opposed to a place of insecurity. At the beginning of this, I told you that I wanted to get you to think about leadership development differently in less than 6 minutes. I hope you now more clearly see that if you want to elevate in your effectiveness as a leader, or if you want to help other leaders elevate in their effectiveness, you've got to change your focus from horizontal development to vertical development. And this involves stepping into and healing from past trauma. To me, there's 2 things that we need in this world: better leaders and more healing. And we can't have one without the other.